Bon, alors aujourd'hui on va faire 9B2 et 10A. We're doing 9B2 and 10A. You have kind of a, you probably won't think of it as a basic grammar thing, but it kind of is. You know most of the stuff that you need to know for it. It will take some review, but there's just one more little spin that we're going to put on your pronouns that you learned in 1002. So, and then we'll do some vocab, and I was going to try to find a video. I couldn't find a video that had anything to do with what we're doing. Salut Joseph! So, normally I have a video connected to the class in some way, but I couldn't find anything this time, so I'll try to start doing that again next week, so that'll be a little more interesting for y'all. Alors, voilà. It's not your imagination. There are a couple things that still aren't working, namely the quizzes, but I figured out what I'm doing wrong. So you'll have extra time to do the last couple of quizzes that I wasn't able to get working in time. And the quiz this week will be working, so yay. I'll have all of those up. A couple of them tonight and one of them tomorrow night. And I'm almost... I have one more thing to put on your composition module before I can make it available to you. You will have it available to you, and the rough draft will be due slightly later than it was going to be. It'll be due the 10th instead of the end of this week. So it gives you a little tiny bit more time with it. Voilà. Je pense que c'est tout pour les rappels. I don't think there were any more reminders. Okay. I went ahead and looked up the stuff. Oh, good. Oh, no, you know what? Oh, shoot. Oh, that's funny. Everybody probably did that. Those are still just there by accident because I used the same course shell and I never got around to going and deleting all those quizzes. So thanks for reminding me, Joseph. I'll go delete those. But in the meantime, hopefully you got some easy points because it should have been a relatively easy quiz for you. If anybody else did that, then they got some extra good points too. And I'll try to make sure that it's in the gradebook also. But yeah, I'll go and delete the rest of those. I thought of that this morning, but I thought I had the dates set so that nobody could get into them. But that's totally fine. I'll go and change that around. So meanwhile, everybody gets a few bonus quiz points maybe, and that's fine. So I did look up the stuff that you guys need to review for the stuff that we're doing today. So what we're doing today is all of those indirect and direct object pronouns that you learned last semester. We're putting them together now in sentences so that you have more than one pronoun in an idea. Until now, you only had one. So if you need to go back and review that stuff, your indirect object pronouns are in lesson 6B1. 6B1 is where you go to review your indirect object pronouns. To review your direct object pronouns, go to 7A2. 7A2 is where you go to review the direct object pronouns. And I will post that on our module too. So that's handy for everybody. Alors, voilà. Voilà. On va sauter dedans alors. D'abord, je pensais qu'on allait réviser un tout petit peu avec texte. Hein? So I hope you don't mind. We're going to go review a little bit with text if I can find... Oh, there it is. Voilà. Alors, en fait, c'était pas là où on allait... I accidentally closed the one I meant to have open, but that's totally fine. I will find it again. For the direct object pronouns, this just gives us a little bit of a review. I actually pulled up the PowerPoints too, so if those of you who are attending the class want a little more review with it, we can actually go through the... Oh, really? Oh, shoot. Was it too soft? Was it that you couldn't hear me? It was just weird. I played the first few minutes, and it seemed good. I went to test to see if the blurriness was gone, and I was very happy that it seemed to be gone. Was it just hard to understand? I'll go play it later and figure it out. That's okay, I'll check as well. That's weird though. I'll be sad if that's the case. Last year there wasn't any trouble with the audio, or last semester, on YouTube. And actually last semester there wasn't any trouble with the blurriness. That's a new problem, so I hope I got that fixed. It looked like I did with the few minutes that I watched last week. But that's cool. Thanks for the heads up though, either way. I'll check it as well. So I'm making a note. I'm going to make an old school note on a piece of paper. You ready for that? Okay, there we go. Cool. Très bien. Merci, hein, Joseph. So hopefully we'll figure it out. And you guys do have the Blackboard Collaborate kind of as a fallback, although the refresh on it would drive me crazy personally. It kind of just constantly rolls down the screen. So hopefully I can figure out what's going on with the sound, and if there is a problem I'll try to figure out how to fix it. Voila. So first we're going to review a little bit of, I didn't mean to do that, I meant to do this. There we go. Whoops. A little bit bigger. There we go. En fait, just one second and I'll uncover you again, Joseph. I meant to make it, there we go. Voila. Très bien. Okay. Alors, direct object pronouns, we're just looking at a really quick review of those. Again, I want to underline that text has these audios. So I've talked about how they have them for irregular verbs. They have them for all your pronouns and stuff too. So if you need to review any of that stuff, you've got them. So if you remember your your direct object pronouns, me, te, le, la, nous, vous, les, n'est-ce pas? And that's it. And I'm going to give you just a really quick review of placement for all of these. Placement for your for your direct object pronouns and your indirect object pronouns is exactly the same. I shouldn't say roughly. It's exactly the same. Basically, look for an infinitive in your idea. Now, if you have a sentence that has more than one thing going on in it, you might have a couple different verbs happening, right? So for each idea, look for an infinitive. Oh, and actually, in your notes, you should put directly in front of, if there is one. If there's no infinitive, okay, directly in front of the conjugated verb. Now the reason I want you to put directly in there, and this is just for you to have a little recap-y thing to look at to remind yourselves about these pronouns. This will hold you regardless of what tense you ever use. Okay, which is not something that we can tell you guys very often. So the reason I want you to say directly and make sure you're thinking directly is because remember, if I have a negative, I'm putting my negative around the whole thing. So last semester, oh, pardon, go back. Where are you? There we are. No. There we go. Last semester, we had some examples like, oh, pardon, je fais mes devoirs. D'accord? So, mes devoirs is my definite article. I mean, my direct, my direct object. Wow, I can't talk tonight. And if I'm putting this in a sentence with my pronoun, oh, pardon. D'accord? So, what if I have a negative? D'accord? Now, since my rule says directly in front of the conjugated verb, d'accord? And I'm putting it directly in front of the conjugated verb. So don't let a negation throw you. Don't let an interrogative throw you. If I'm asking a question with this, I'm going to say les, tu. Are you doing them now? For example, and it's going directly in front of my conjugated verb, even though I've got an inversion here. So this rule is going to work always. Now, by the same token, if I say no, I'm not doing them now, I'm going to do them in a little while. Oh, qu'est-ce que je fais? Suzanne, j'arrive pas à... Voilà. Je vais les faire à 20h. Now look what it did. It jumped in front. Oh, good. I'm so glad. I'm sorry that it was messed up for you, though. But I'm really glad. Now look at what's happened to the direct object pronoun. It's jumped in front of the infinitive. D'accord? Because first, I'm going to look for the infinitive, right? If there's no infinitive, my default is directly in front of the conjugated verb. Always, 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 always. Now this is even going to come into play if I have an infinitive structure that has something extra going on with it. So a couple weeks ago we did passé récent. We said venir de. So I could do the same thing. Je viens de les faire. And my rule is still going to help me because I'm thinking directly in front of the infinitive, and anything else that's there, I'm not going to let it confuse me because my rule is keeping me straight by telling me to do it directly in front, right? So directly in front of the infinitive, no infinitive, directly in front of the conjugated verb. Now this works for everything except affirmative commands. D'accord? And I'll put this here. Okay? If I have an affirmative command, you may or may not remember, it goes after. So we'll do a couple of those examples. D'accord? So let me make this bigger. Normally I don't do this much stuff on the little post-its, but I wanted to give you guys something that you could look at just quickly and remind yourselves quickly of how to do that stuff. So let's move these, put them up here. D'accord? And affirmative commands. Parle-lui, par exemple, n'est-ce pas? And even though I didn't do an indirect up here, indirects work exactly the same. And even though this one is an indirect, directs work exactly the same. So I might say, je dois d'accord? Même chose. So with these, directly after the verb, hooked on with a hyphen. You're never going to have an infinitive involved if it's an affirmative command. Okay, so you don't need to worry about any of this stuff. Anything else at all aside from an affirmative command, then do the two-step thing. If you have an infinitive, go directly in front of it. No infinitive, directly in front of the conjugated verb. D'accord? This is going to work for passé composé also. Just, it works for everything. So that's the quickest little thing to keep in mind now that you guys already know those from way back when. Now, what we're going to do today, we're going to do the same placement, but now you're going to have more than one pronoun together. D'accord? So we'll look at that in a second. But what I want to do first is just a little bit of review. Alors, je pense que oui, voilà. This is just with the directs, but it'll still give you a little bit of a review. And if you guys need to, I can pull that yellow thing back up for us to look at. In fact, we'll just keep it there. How about... Voilà, très bien. Alors, Joe Bob adore les feux d'artifice. So if you need to stop the video to figure out what the pronouns are, then do that. If not, you can have your book open to 7A2 if you want to, or you could have another window open to the text page and just be higher up so you can look at the pronouns. And what pronoun do I need for les feux d'artifice? So these are directs. Joseph, do you say quel pronom? We'll do a little reminder over here as well. Oh, what did I just do? Voilà. So our choices are le, te, le, la, nous, vous, les. D'accord? Almost. C'est pluriel ou singulier? Oui, voilà. C'est les. Then I look at my little thing over here that Madame Clay made me, and I see that I look for an infinitive. There's no infinitive. So I go directly in front of the conjugated verb, right? Alors, je Bob. I don't know why I'm not capitalizing. Oh, pardon. D'accord? Il les adore. Tex drague bête. Alors, bête, c'est encore un animal hein, dans les histoires de Tex. Alors, pour bête, qu'est-ce que vous allez me donner comme pronom? I used to be able to... Oh. Doop, 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 doop. We'll do that, I guess. There. Alors, oui, sauf que your pronoun is taking the place of bête. D'accord? So then I'm only going to have Tex and drague in the sentence, and drague is my verb. So where do you want to put la? Oh, pardon. Draguer means to flirt with somebody. Oh, they have it glossed for you there. To flirt with somebody or to hit on somebody. And bête is the one, voilà, that he's flirting with. Alors la drague. Très bien. Tex la drague. Bête a embrassé Tex. So same thing. Don't let the passé composé throw you, because your same rule is going to apply. D'accord? I didn't do a passé composé one here for you, but I can. Oh wait, didn't I? That's so weird. I thought I had. D'accord. If you don't remember this S thing, don't worry about it right now. D'accord? Presque, which is my conjugated verb? Avoir ou embrasser? Look at our example with the passé composé over here. Oui, and then what do I do if I have two vowels next to each other? Voilà, très bien. Oh, pardon. Tandis que moi, je peux pas faire l'orthographe aujourd'hui. Oh. If I stop and think about the accents, then I freak out, my hands freak out and don't know what to do. I have to do the accents absolutely without thinking about it. Joe Bob ne finit pas ses devoirs. So don't let this possessive throw you. N'est-ce pas, les claviers, oh là. This is still just homework, d'accord? So, Joe Bob And remember I said directly in front, even if there's a negative there, right? So what are we going to end up with? So I'm replacing ses devoirs. Don't forget to take out what we're replacing. In each case, they've got the direct object in capitals. So we're taking that out, and we're replacing it with our pronoun. So you're almost right except for that. So Jobab, no. Almost. How many, c'est pluriel ou singulier les devoirs? Les. Très bien. Ne les finis pas. Voilà. C'est très bien. So there still are lots of things to think about with this, and a lot of you guys watching the video later, don't worry. I mean, there are a lot of things to remember. Go back and review. So again, 6b1 and 7a2. And if you need to do everything in one little step at a time, then that's totally fine. Okay? So first look for your direct object or whatever. Think about what pronoun you're going to need. Then look at the rest of the sentence. Figure out your placement. And then do it all, you know, at the end if you need to. And then be sure and leave out the thing that we're replacing. But it'll come back to you. Don't worry. And the good thing is that you don't have to learn anything new about any of that with the stuff that we're doing now. It's simply that if you don't have that reviewed as firmly as you maybe need to, it's going to be a little harder to do more than one at once, obviously. But you'll be fine. Alors, Edouard n'aime pas attendre le bus. So what do we have this time that we didn't have in the other ones? Attendre. So remember my rules. The first thing to look for is an infinitive. Look at number 1, Joseph. Directly in front of the infinitive if there is one. And I do have an infinitive this time. So where am I going to put my pronoun? In front of attendre, right. Oh, pardon. D'accord? So look for an infinitive. If there's no infinitive, you're safe to go in front of the conjugated verb. And this was great, where you have ne l'aime pas. That's fantastic. But look for your infinitive first. If there's an infinitive, it's going to take precedence. No infinitive, then you're safe to go in front of the conjugated verb. And a really big majority of the time when you have an infinitive, it's going to be because you have a verb of preference here. So, je n'aime pas manger des épinards, je n'aime pas en manger, etc. Alors, Tammy a invité ses amis à dîner. So, look for an infinitive. I don't have an infinitive this time. What pronoun am I going to use for ses amis? Where do you want to put it? So this is similar to when we said ses devoirs. Très bien, sauf que, est-ce que c'est pluriel ou singulier? Les devoirs, oh, les amis, pardon. Voilà. Alors, elle les a invités. And then, if you guys don't remember the little S that we need, it's not super dire at this point. D'accord? À dîner. Oh, pardon. Voilà. D'accord? They do have this covered in your lesson on 7A2. But this is another one of those things that a lot of French people don't remember to do. So, you know, it will be another thing to remember, but I'm going to mostly be focused on whether you can work with the pronouns or not. So this part is not worth as much as any of the rest of it. So really make sure that you can figure out the order. Make sure that you can figure out which pronoun you use in each case. And then later you can start worrying about whether you need agreement on your past participle. D'accord? Tex cherche Tammy. Qu'est-ce que je vais faire? Tex. Oui, c'est très bien, except take the R off of chercher. Très bien, c'est très 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 bien. Just don't use an infinitive for chercher. Texte la cherche. Très bien, c'est très très bien. Joe Bob regarde la télévision. So this one's almost the same. I used to do the Jeopardy song when people were voilà, là, when people were thinking, but I think it drove a couple classes crazy, so I stopped for a while. I might start up again, you never know. Joe Bob la regarde, très bien, c'est très bien. Tammy va chanter la Marseillaise. Oh, allons enfants de la patrie, le jour de gloire est arrivé. I don't have very much voice tonight, so not that it would sound that much better if I did. Alors, Tammy, what do I have this time? Whoa, wait a second. What do I have this time that I didn't have in the last couple? And I said, to be careful about over here in number 1. So everything, all of your verbs and everything are going to stay the same. D'accord? You're not going to have to change anything in the sentence, at least not with this particular activity. So I'm going to keep that infinitive. And what happens to the pronoun if I have an infinitive? So if I'm going directly in front of the infinitive, I'm going to go ahead and have aller. And then I'm going to put my pronoun. Oui, très bien. Et puis chanter, l'infinitif. Va la chanter. D'accord? Alors, so again, those of you, as you're watching the video too, if you need, you could probably do a screen cap of that if you want. What I'll try to do is remember to copy paste it somewhere for you guys to have it for reference. But this is just the most pared down that you can get this stuff, okay? If you first decide whether it's a command or not, or whether it's an affirmative command or not, then once you've figured out it's not an affirmative command, look for an infinitive. Your infinitive takes precedence over everything else. If you have an infinitive, it goes directly in front of the infinitive, no matter what. So if I have a preposition, if I have an, you wouldn't have a negation really in front of an infinitive that way. But anything else that might be in the sentence, I'm going to stick it right in front of the infinitive. No infinitive, then I'm safe to go directly in front of the conjugated verb. D'accord? So you can also think of that as the active verb. Okay? It's the verb that's going to change the most if I change the subject of my sentence. D'accord? So here where I have passé composé, faire is my principal verb. It's more important when if I were translating this idea. The communication here, the actual verb is more important than the time frame, just barely. But this is the verb that's active, avoir. Okay? So it's going in front of the active or conjugated verb. D'accord? So just keep thinking about that as you're doing some of these. And you guys are doing some pretty, this is pretty sophisticated. You've got a lot of different tenses and a lot of different forms that you have under your belts now. So you'll need to be on the lookout for all kinds of things so that you can figure out where to put the pronouns. D'accord? Alors cette fois, les étudiants de texte, leur verbe. Qu'est-ce que vous allez me donner pour leur verbe? So again, look at your pronouns up here if you need to. Les ont appris. Super! C'est très, très, très bien. D'accord? And this S that I was talking about up here, les a invités ou les ai faits, if I have a verb that's the past participle already ends in an S, then I don't need to worry about it. Now if this were feminine, I would do my feminine ending. But for this one, we can just go on. Tammy va fêter la Saint-Sylvestre. Très bien, c'est super. Tammy va la fêter. Très bien, c'est super. I have an infinitive this time, so I'm going directly in front of the infinitive. So if I had a negative or anything else going on, I would still be safe with my pronoun right there in front of my infinitive. Fiona a étudié l'espagnol. Qu'est-ce que vous allez me donner? Presque, which is my conjugated verb, which is the active verb. Étudier is more important for meaning, but it's not being conjugated. La, très bien. L'a étudié. Très bien. Fiona l'a étudié. So, as you guys are watching this too, this is how a lot of our stuff works, especially in 2001, where, you know, we have a more or less simple thing to go over, but you can see all of the different things it's going to touch on. And if you're going through some of these and you're not sure which is the conjugated verb or not, you're not sure if you have an infinitive or not, you're not sure if it's an affirmative command or a negative command or whatever, those are things that you're probably going to have to go take a look at also and just refresh your memory a little bit. That'll be easier and easier as you go throughout the semester. So if you just go ahead and try to do that with each thing that comes up, then the next thing that comes up where you have to go review, I don't know, infinitive structures or something, they'll seem that much more familiar to you again. So, and it'll take less and less review each time, and they'll stick in your head better and better each time, I guarantee it. But go ahead and take that time to go back and do any kind of bolstering that you need to do when we run across something that you haven't seen for a while, or don't remember exactly how it works or whatever. So there, what up? So that was just review. We're going to look at, I pulled these others up, but we're not going to use them. Oh, and I'm going to turn off my little note. No more floating, thank you. Voila. So we don't need this one either. I hope I didn't just close the one I needed. Oh, goody. I didn't. All right, good. So now we're looking at, oh, well, let me just give you the indirects here too, so that you've got those for if you need to look at them also later. So me, te, lui, nous, vous, leur, and then later we used I and en. And technically those are indirect object pronouns too, okay? We don't usually put them in the same group, but technically they are. So there's your me and te and nous and vous can do double duty. They can be direct or indirect, right? Lui and leur should look familiar. If not, go back and look at 6b1. I and en, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't look up the lesson for that. I and en is 10. Oh, we haven't done those yet. You don't have to do those yet, so I'm going to take those off. I forgot that that's a little later in this book. Voila. So, of these, the ones that we just looked at, now we're going to learn how to put more than one of them in the sentence at the same time. Hooray! Alors, in 6b and 7a, respectively, you learn to use indirect and direct object pronouns, just like we just said. As you can probably surmise, you're not always just going to have one pronoun per idea. The reason we even have indirect object pronouns is because normally we have not a direct object in the same sentence. So very often you're going to have both of these, and you'll need to use them together as their pronouns in a sentence. Okay? Now, this isn't going to change which pronouns you use for what. All it's changing is that you're putting more than one in, and you have to watch your order. Your placement, I'm going to go back here and drive you guys crazy. Your placement and everything is still exactly the same. And that's why these little rules of mine should be, go away, should be relatively helpful, because even though I'm going to have more than one pronoun, I'm still going to put both of them directly in front of the infinitive if there is one, or directly in front of the conjugated verb if there isn't an infinitive, or directly after the verb for an affirmative command. D'accord? So all of these things will still hold true. Okay? The thing that is going to be the new thing is that we have to learn order. D'accord? And this is one of the rare things in French that doesn't work because of grammatical purpose or grammatical function. So a lot of the time we say, oh, that kind of thing goes in front of the other kind of thing, or, the conjugated verb goes in front of the infinitive, or whatever. But for this thing, it's simply been dictated by usage down through the centuries. And what you're going to see here is we just talked about the fact that me, te, nous, vous can be either direct or indirect, right? Lui and leur are always indirect. Le, la, les are always direct. But I can't tell myself, oh, indirect comes before direct, or direct comes before indirect, because that's not how it works. It works in respect to what sounds the best, or what people found was the easiest order to say things in as French progressed through the centuries. That's how this was decided. So in a way, that's easier. Those of you who don't like to have all the grammar rules, you'll be better about this. But you still need to memorize, and you still have to make sure you're doing it right. And after a while, you will get so that, especially those of you who go on in major or minor, you'll get to a point where you don't need to look at these charts. You'll simply say it to yourself a couple different ways, and one way will feel better than the other way because you're so used to seeing it that way and hearing it that way. So this is my order if I have a sentence except for affirmative commands, which contains more than one pronoun. Now you may wonder, what about if I have two direct objects or two indirect objects? That's never going to happen. D'accord? If you had two people who were both direct objects, you would simply say les, right? If I had two people that were indirect objects, then I'm going to use one of my plural indirect objects that works for both of those people. And I'm still going to have a direct object in there somewhere. Okay? So that's never going to happen. But just learn this order and you're good to go, except for affirmative commands. D'accord? So here's some examples. Gérard m'envoie les messages de Christiane. Now if I want to change this to a pronoun, now I'm going to have two pronouns together. Il me les envoie. D'accord? Je lui envoie aussi les messages de Laurent. Now I want to switch that and put a pronoun in for les messages. Je les lui envoie. D'accord? And look what's happening. In this one, the indirect is coming first because me always precedes le, la, les, lui, leur, or whatever. Here, my direct is first because le, la, les always precedes lui and leur. D'accord? So again, it's going by usage, not by grammar. Okay? It's going by ease of speech, not by grammar. Voilà. Encore des exemples. Le chef nous prépare son meilleur plat. Now I'm going to put that one in a pronoun form as well. Il nous l'apporte. Les serveurs nous l'apportent. D'accord? Nous avons laissé le pourboire des serveurs sur la table. Nous le leur avons laissé quand nous sommes partis. D'accord? These are some pretty long sentences to use for examples, I have to say, but that's okay. In an infinitive construction, look at my little rule. Oh my gosh, directly in front of the infinitive. Double object pronouns come after the conjugated verb and precede the infinitive, just like single object pronouns. Now, I'll probably drive you guys crazy with this, but the reason that I think my rule is better is because you're telling yourself directly in front of the infinitive. If you tell yourself after the conjugated verb and before the infinitive, to me that's more complicated. What are you going to do if there's a negation in there? What are you going to do if there's a preposition in there? Okay? So if you think directly in front of the infinitive, you're covered. Anything else that might be coming in front of the infinitive, you're set. D'accord? So you obviously don't have to use that rule, but I think it might help a lot of you. So, des exemples, mes notes de français, je vais vous les prêter. Carole veut lire mon poème, je vais le lui montrer. D'accord? I have an infinitive, now that's taking precedence. In all those other examples, we were putting things in front of the conjugated verb, right? There's no infinitive in the idea. Now I have an infinitive, they're going in front of the infinitive because it takes precedence. D'accord? We saw an example a little while ago where it was a verb of preference. So it might be a verb of preference. It might be aller plus l'infinitif, futur proche. It could be venir de. It could be lots of different things. But the fact that you've got an infinitive in the idea means that you're going to put your pronouns in front of it, not in front of the conjugated verb. In the passé composé, they're still going in front of what these guys are telling you is the auxiliary verb, which it is the auxiliary verb. But if you remember my rule, you're covered because the helping verb, the auxiliary verb, is the conjugated verb, right? So again, you just have one thing to remember. No infinitive, directly in front, get out of the way, directly in front of the conjugated verb. D'accord? So, just like when we looked at all these examples, there's a conjugated verb, that's what I do for passé composé. So I'm going to do the same thing if there's more than one pronoun. Same exact placement. Rémi a-t-il acheté ses fleurs pour sa mère? Oui, il les lui a achetées. D'accord? And the ES is because of fleur. D'accord? So go back again in 7A2 if you need to review this agreement issue. D'accord? Vous m'avez donné la plus grande chambre? Oui, nous vous l'avons donnée. And here are both of my pronouns in front of my conjugated verb. And they're reminding you about the agreement again. In affirmative commands, this is different. D'accord? In affirmative commands, everything goes after the verb, just like it did before. D'accord? Oui parle, go away. Oui parle lui, oui fait les. But now I'm going to have two pronouns out here instead of just one. D'accord? And my order for this, they gave you a nice big chart for that other one, right? They gave you this nice big chart, and it's in the book as well. They didn't give you a chart for the affirmative commands, so I made one for you, and I'll put it somewhere. Here's the one for affirmative imperative, affirmative commands. D'accord? D'accord? Verb. Oh, and I should have put a hyphen, because that's what we need. And you need hyphens between everything. D'accord? And E and all will come, so leave those there, and when we see E and all, you'll already be ready for them. And actually on the other chart, E and all are the last things to add there as well, before the verb. Okay? But we'll talk about that when we do E and all. So here's my order for these. Le la les is coming first, then any of the people ones. D'accord? Whether they're direct or indirect. Me, te, nous, vous. If me and te are the last sentence, the last word in my command, they change to moi and toi. Some of you may remember those disjunctive pronouns. You did them way, way, way early. I didn't look up the lesson. But they were for emphasis a lot of the time. And when I'm telling somebody to do something, that's pretty emphatic. So if I have me and te at the end, that's just not emphatic enough. So I'm changing it to moi and toi so it has some power, right? So it has some oomph. I'm still going to put hyphens between everything. D'accord? So if you choose le and lui, I'm going to have hyphen, hyphen. D'accord? If you choose les et nous, I'm going to have verb, hyphen, les, hyphen, nous. D'accord? Voilà. And this me and te apostrophes are only going to come into play later when we do the e and all. D'accord? Alors, on va continuer. Voilà. Alors, so here's some examples of that. Montrez-les-moi. Donne-le-leur. D'accord? Dis-la nous. Traduisons-le lui. D'accord? And I have a direct and an indirect in each case, but they're going in different order. Actually, in this one, the le, la, les goes in front regardless. But if I had nous as a direct object, I would have it first, and then maybe something else coming later. Not usually anything but e and en. Those are going to be pretty useful when we get to those. C'est très bien. Voilà. Alors, on va pratiquer un tout petit peu. Je vais fermer ça. On va chercher les exercices que j'avais trouvés. Et non pas cette page. Oh! I covered up Joseph. There you are. Yay! Yes, exactly like that. Parle-le-leur. Très bien. Très très bien. This is the wrong page. Attendez. I forgot the page. La 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 la. 388, 384. Voilà. Alors, nous, on va... I should have made this littler. Oh my goodness, this thing. Oh, there it goes finally. Okay. Does the v-text just really not behave for you guys either? It just really doesn't behave for me, but that's alright. It's a good start. They'll get it better every time, I'm sure. First we're going to look at this essayer, d'accord? On va le regarder sur le site. So this one will be pretty straightforward. Voila. So I'm gonna pull up my little thing again so that you've got that. You may want to have your book open somehow. If you're using the v-text, then you'll need to just have it in a separate window. And if not, we can scoot back and forth to it, to the... Oh, I should have left that open. Just a minute. I'll open the PowerPoint again so that we can... Oh, cancel. There we go. It's not opening. 9B2. I really shouldn't have closed that. Everybody's like, Bowie, what's she doing with Bowie? I might be singing that song for something that's coming up. I'm supposed to do a solo for something in a couple months, so I might be singing a Bowie song. Wouldn't that be cool? Okay, we're going to turn to where they had the chart for us. There it is. Voila. Très bien. Okay, so now we're going to do our activity. Tes parents t'achètent le billet. Ouais, le v-text, c'est pas super, hein? Plus, the main thing with the v-text is that stupid zoom. I don't understand. They're really just totally whacked out on goofballs that they think that zoom is a good thing. It's ridiculous. Alors, tes parents t'achètent le billet. So when we were doing the text thing, I said, if you guys want to do this in little steps, please go ahead and do that. So one thing I used to do is I used to just stop and tell myself to look at the actual pronouns and see what pronouns I'm really going to need. So I don't know why I did that, because really, as soon as we type, it's going to move anyway. So I have t'achète, te, n'est-ce pas? And I have le billet. So what pronoun do I need for le billet? And all we're doing is restating it. We're not answering or anything, so we don't have to change anything. What pronoun am I going to use for le billet? Le, très bien. D'accord. So we're going to put those aside, and we're going to start our sentence. Oh, I meant to do this. Voilà. So now I look at my order thing, and I'm going to be using te and le That's really, really small. Let me zoom? No, but I can just do that. There we go. So I have te and le. So I've already got my order all set up, right? If we had written it opposite, then you simply would look at this too and go, oh, okay, te's got to go first. So I got to close text because that's driving me crazy. I keep thinking we need it. Okay. Alors, tes parents te le achètent. And I accidentally left Joseph covered up. Okay, there we go. Achètes. D'accord. And what else do I need to do? There's one more fine-tuning thing I need to do. What do we do with two vowels together? That's not a very good song, but it'll do the trick. Voila. Oh, the te stays. There's not two vowels there, right? Where are my two vowels? Right there. Oui, très bien. Alors, tu l'achètes. Tu l'achètes. D'accord? And as I said, as you're going through these in the WebSam or wherever, if you need to do them a little step at a time, then do that. And little by little, you'll be able to think of more at the same time. And sooner or later, you'll be doing it all kind of more or less at the same time and all at once. But if you need to do it in steps first, go ahead and do that. Qui t'a donné cette belle lampe bleue? So remember, we're not answering, we're just restating. So this is going to stay in a question. And we can go look at our order. We have la and te. So I'm going to put te in front of la. D'accord? Well, actually, that's the next thing to come, isn't it? So we don't have to move it all the way over there. Alors, qui te l'a? And then I need my verb. And I accidentally left Joseph covered up again. There we go. Qui te l'a? Très bien. Except what is la replacing? So up here, we didn't restate le billet because we were using le instead of le billet, right? And here we're using la instead of cette belle lampe bleue. D'accord? So I'm not going to have it in my answer. D'accord? Oh, and I forgot, you already had the apostrophe thing done for us. Fantastic. D'accord? Qui te l'a donné? Et c'est tout. D'accord? So remember, with a lot of these activities are going to be like that, where they're having you replace something with the pronoun, so be sure that whatever you're replacing with the pronoun, you go ahead and leave out in your answer. Qui te l'a donné? Et c'est tout. I'll move this over so it doesn't look weird. There we go. Alors, très bien. Il nous a... Because she's not here to give us moral support today. It's very sad. We're going to have to get after her. Alors, pour numéro 3, il nous a réservé les chambres. Alors, this time we have les chambres. So we have nous and les. And I'm going to go look at my little chart. Nous comes before les. They're doing all these ones where you're just going to stay the same. I want them to switch one up on you guys so that you have to think about it a little more. They will eventually. Okay. Et puis voilà. Très bien. Et nous... Oh, except les chambres. C'est pluriel ou singulier? Oui, nous les a réservés. ES. D'accord? You'll get them eventually. Crazy plurals. That's one of those things that if you answered somebody that way in France and they had said it the first way, they would understand that that's what you meant. So that's what Dr. Duvall and I are always telling each other, that In a perfect world, we could just drop you guys in France and see how well you survive, and the people that were able to feed themselves and find bathrooms would get A's. And and you would see that there is so much that you can get wrong and still get your idea across. So unfortunately, since we teach French the way we teach French and the way we teach all languages over here, or for the most part, we have to be picky and make sure everybody's getting every little thing right. But if you were in France and you didn't have the plural there and somebody had asked you it this way, their head would just assimilate it, just like you would if you were speaking to somebody who didn't speak English super well. You would know what they meant. So, voilà. Il nous les a réservés. And again, if you need to go back and look at that agreement, you guys, go back to 7A2 and remind yourselves about those. Alors, pose-moi tes questions. This time I have an affirmative command. Woohoo! So, I know I'm going to start with my verb. And I'm going to go look at my chart. And, oh wait, what do we need? We need moi. And what pronoun are we going to use for tes questions? I covered up Joseph again. Voilà. Pose-les-moi. Oh, you're so fast. You're super fast. That's amazing. Very good. Pose-les-moi. Très bien. C'est super. Alors, pose-les-moi. And again, I'm using that moi to be super emphatic at the end. Explique-leur le problème de maths. Same idea. We have an affirmative command again. Oh, qu'est-ce que je fais? Explique-leur le problème de maths. I covered up Joseph again. Voilà. Explique-le-leur, but there's a slight spelling issue. Explique-le-leur. The reason you guys want to put an S on the end of that is because leur is also one of your possessive pronouns. So I actually don't think that we do those until this semester. Did we do those already in 102? I think we didn't do them yet. I thought they were this semester. Yeah, we don't do those until, actually, we don't do those until 2002. But a lot of you have had French before, so if you're tempted to put that S on the end, yeah, we don't do it until lesson 15. So that's way after you guys leave me, unless I'm doing 2002 for you. So those of you who had French before, your tendency to want to put an S on that, it's because you're thinking about the possessive pronoun. But when you're using it as an indirect object pronoun, you're never going to have anything on the end. Leur, without anything ever. Très bien. Alors, c'est numéro 6. Peux-tu me montrer les photos? And I'm going to just circle something real quick for you before we dig it on that. Get out of the way! Before we dig it on that one. Directly in front of the infinitive. Oh, might be something to remember with this one. Peux-tu? Oh, that gives you a big hint. I didn't mean to do that. Forget I did that. We have already one pronoun, me. That's my indirect. What am I going to do for my direct object pronoun? So we have me and les. D'accord? And when we go and look at our order, me comes before les. So we're pretty much set in that regard. And I have an infinitive, so that takes precedence for my placement. So what do we end up with? Oui, super. Peux-tu me les montrer? Très bien. Oh, voilà. Très bien. Peux-tu me les montrer? D'accord? Alors, tu préfères lui prêter ton dictionnaire? So, lui is an indirect. Ton dictionnaire is my direct. What pronoun do I need for ton dictionnaire? Don't let the possessives throw you. Sometimes you guys see the possessive and think and go down a slightly different road than you need to go down. So, oui, très bien. Tu préfères lui, le. Now look at your order. So far they've been really nice and they've been giving us these pronouns here, right? Now we have le and lui. So what's my order going to be this time? Oui, très bien. Le, lui. Alors, tu préfères le, lui. Le, lui, prêter. Voilà. Tu préfères le lui prêter. Voilà. C'est très bien. Numéro 8. Dites-moi la vérité. So I've got my moi already. We know that everything's coming after the verb because it's an affirmative command. And what's my other pronoun going to be? Dites. Check your spelling on dites. But otherwise, fantastic. Dites-la-moi. Dites-la-moi. Très bien. Dites-la-moi. And there's another one where I'm changing to my moi to make it more emphatic. D'accord? Since it's the last word. And until we look at e and a, you're not going to see these, but you would end up with stuff like this. So e, well, all is easier to look at. All means like some of something. So if I said, oh, give me some of the raspberries or something, I would say, donne-moi un peu. Give me a little bit of the raspberries. And here's an example of where I'm going to have my M apostrophe, and then another pronoun, and then that's the end of my my imperative. D'accord? So don't worry too much about it because we're going to look at those later this lesson. Then we can fit them into your multi-pronoun fun. Your multi-pronoun fun. Because I know you're having fun with this. C'est très bien. Dites-le-moi. Numéro 9. Nous n'avons pas apporté les couteaux à Paul. This time they're making you do both pronouns. So what pronoun am I going to use for les couteaux? Les. What pronoun do I want to use for à Paul? Presque. He's an indirect. Because we're giving something to him. The couteaux are the direct, and Paul is my indirect. So what do I need to use for Paul? So look back at our choices. With moteur, lui, nous, vous, leur. Très bien. Voilà. Lui is my indirect third person singular. D'accord? Alors, now we look at my rules. Again, it's not an affirmative command, right? So we know that we're going to go up here. Is there an infinitive anywhere? No. So now I just have to focus on my conjugated verb, and I'm going directly in front of the conjugated verb, right? So we have two verbs, avoir and apporter. One of them is more active than the other one. Apporter is more important for translation. It's the main idea, right? But avoir is tweaking the time frame. And avoir is conjugated. Apporter is not. Presque. Don't forget we're going to leave these together. So what are you going to end up with? Nous, ne, très bien, les, lui, avons, pas, apporté-vous. Voilà. D'accord? Because the whole point of what we're doing is learning to use them together, and they're going to stick together wherever we put them. right? So once you figure out your order, whether it's the command order or whether it's the order for everything except for affirmative commands, they're going to go exactly the same place. So these rules are still going to apply, and the coolest part is you just put them together. You don't have to figure out different places for each of them. You're going to put them totally together in front of the infinitive or in front of the conjugated verb or whatever, right? So in that respect, it's actually cutting you a little bit of a break compared to a lot of the things that we do. Très bien. C'est très bien. And again, if you need to review this agreement, go back to 7A2 so that you can look at that. D'accord? Voilà. Whoa. On allait faire encore un exemple. There was another activity that I was kind of interested in that was, oh, I remember. They have one that works the other direction. This is really interesting. And what I think we'll do is go ahead and practice that instead of, we were going to go look at vocab. We'll just do a couple of these, and then we'll go do the vocab stuff so that you can at least get a little bit of other stuff as well. So, we actually have to, I forgot that this one isn't in WebSam, so we'll have to just play with a couple of these with a post-it, which is fine. So this is on page 386, and the reason this activity is really cool to practice with, and if I remember correctly, there's one WebSam activity that is similar to this, but if not, come back and look at this, because this makes you think the other direction. D'accord? Look at the example. Il veut le lui vendre. Basically, you just have to come up with something that might have been what these replaced. That sounds really convoluted, but it actually does help you understand what the relationship is with between the pronouns and whatever they're talking about. So if I had that example, Marc va la lui donner, pardon. So now I have another one. And voila. Oh, that's too big. Voila. Voilà. D'accord? So we could come up with gobs of different things that might replace la and lui. D'accord? Since lui is indirect, it's going to most likely be a person that he's giving something to, right? So we could automatically come up with something for that. So we could say something like Marie. Okay? So that's what we're using for lui. La could be anything also. La could be, je sais pas, la fleur. Pourquoi pas? D'accord? And then I'm putting them back in a sentence. D'accord? Oh, qu'est-ce que je fais là? D'accord? See how that works. Voilà, c'est très bien. Watch where you're putting le livre. So now we're not talking about pronouns anymore, right? We're talking about the actual nouns. So you got to go back to our normal syntax, so our normal order. So you're probably going to have almost the same order as what I have here. Okay? So au lieu de il va, très bien. Il va donner, and then take out the second donner. So this one is grammatically correct, but there's one thing that doesn't work if we're using it for this, is that it needs to be something feminine. D'accord? So this one would have been instead of la. But that's the only difference. Otherwise, wonderful. D'accord? Le livre à Brianna. C'est super. So you got the point, you got the gist of it anyway, which is what I wanted to do with this one. So, I'm going to leave that one at that, but you guys might just bookmark this activity and play with it a little bit on your own. If you come up with some that you're not sure if they're right or not and you want to email them to me or something, feel free to do that. But it's a pretty interesting way to teach yourself. It just makes it more real for some reason, going backwards from the finished product. So you can really see, oh, now I see what Lurie is doing, and now I see what the la is all about, and all that stuff. So anyway, it can be useful. Alors, nous, on va continuer avec du vocabulaire. We're not going to have time to do the reading. I'm very sad, actually, about not being able to do the reading. But, oh well. C'est comme ça, tant pis, quoi. C'est la vie, quoi. Voilà. Alors, maintenant, on va regarder le vocabulaire à la page 398. And this new lesson is talking about personal hygiene, health, illnesses, how to talk about what's wrong with you, how to talk about your body, what you're doing to your body, whether you're washing your hands or brushing your teeth or combing your hair or whatever. And these verbs that you see over here, the se coucher, se coiffer, s'endormir, etc., are what we call reflexives. We're going to be getting into those hot and heavy. The cool thing about reflexives and about this book is that it has already shown you virtually everything that you need to know about reflexives, because you guys have already used all the pronouns that you need with reflexives. You already know who the pronouns deal with. You already know how to conjugate ER verbs and IR verbs, and the vast majority of reflexives are ERs. So it cuts us a break with that as well. There's a fair amount of new vocab to learn, obviously, with the reflexive verbs themselves, and then with all the body parts and everything. And then there's a lot of stuff that has to do with all that stuff that we do as parts of, taking care of ourselves. So there's a fair amount of that kind of of that kind of vocabulaire aussi. Le dentifrice, la crème à raser, rasoir, une brosse à dents, etc., etc. D'accord? Voilà. Some of you may already know a lot of the body parts. If you had any high school French, usually there are a couple songs that you end up doing probably that had to do with body parts. So if you know some of them already, yay, very good. One big thing, whether you know them already or not, but especially for those of you who haven't looked at body parts before, is that by and large French people don't use possessives when they talk about body parts. So in English I say something like, oh, I twisted my ankle, or my hand hurts, or my throat is sore, or whatever. But in French we almost never use the possessive. It's pretty much understood that if somebody's talking about skin, they mean their own skin. Otherwise, they're going to make it clear that it's somebody else's skin, or their toe, or their face, or whatever. So that's usually the biggest thing with the body parts that English speakers forget about. They try to put possessives in there, but you're not going to need possessives with them. So, voilà. Regarde le chat. J'ai pas vu ça avant. I've never understood why there's like a roof over their bathroom, though, with this picture. Just don't understand it. Are they in like a outdoor bathroom at like a camping ground or something? C'est bizarre, non? C'est très bizarre, moi, je trouve. Bon ben. Y a d'autres mots de vocabulaire ici. Some more body parts for you. Lots of body parts. We have lots of parts on us. So there's a word for every one of them. Okay. Voilà. Alors, nous, on va... Il y a quelques-uns qui sont un peu difficiles à prononcer, en fait. Attends. Probably... L'orteil. Too many parts. We have just as many in English. Right now, somebody in in their English, in their college English class in France is going, ah, we have to learn all these body parts. Alors, un orteil, that one's probably the hardest one to say over here. Specifically, I was thinking about the word for eye. That tends to be the one that causes people the most trouble. So, un œil is how you say that, un œil. And then the plural is actually way easier, les yeux, les yeux. Une oreille, oreille, d'accord? Un œil, œil. One thing you can think about for that sound actually is to just think the way that we say with like je. You can think, oh, that's all. You can think about the in je, or maybe the in heureux. D'accord? And just think plus a y sound, and then that's the sound. Œil. So œil, œil. And that little kind of œil, little kind of oi, very, very slight oi thing that you're hearing just happens automatically. When your mouth wants to put these two sounds together, you're going to have a little teeny tiny kind of an oi kind of thing happen. But don't try to say the oi. Just say œil, œil. D'accord? Œil. Voilà. Très bien. On va regarder. I seem to remember thinking that the activities on this page weren't super exciting. It's very sad. Ouais. On va faire celui-là quand même. We have a little bit more time. This is probably driving people crazy that these lessons are so long. But you could watch them in little parts or something maybe. So you're going to pick the body part that has the most to do with the action that they're giving you in verb form. Hey. It's not hey. Oh. I was going the wrong way. Okay. Alors, n'est-ce pas? That's right. C'est très bien. Alors, écoutez. Avec quoi est-ce qu'on écoute quelque chose? Avec quoi est-ce qu'on écoute quelque chose? Avec la bouche, avec le doigt, avec le nez, avec l'œil, l'oreille, le pied, la tête. In real life class, we used to do head, shoulders, knees, and toes in French. That was really fun. You guys can do it at home if you want to. It's pretty fun. It works and it rhymes. It's great. Alors, avec quoi est-ce qu'on écoute quelque chose? Avec l'oreille. Très bien. Manger. Avec quoi est-ce qu'on mange quelque chose? La bouche, le doigt, le nez. La bouche, super. Avec quoi est-ce qu'on marche quelque part? La bouche. Oh pardon, ça c'est pas exprès que j'ai fait ça. On marche avec la bouche, le doigt, le nez, les pieds. Très bien, le pied quoi. Les pieds. C'est plus logique, mais là il ne nous donne que le pied. Montrer. Avec quoi est-ce qu'on montre quelque chose? Avec l'oreille, avec la tête. Un peu avec la tête, ça se peut. Mais plus souvent, on montre quelque chose avec... Tu peux montrer quelque chose avec la tête. Tu fais tu penches la tête un tout petit peu, n'est-ce pas? Mais sinon, qu'est-ce qui est plus ouverte? Si tu montres quelque chose avec le doigt, d'accord? Tu peux montrer, oui, c'est to show. Alors tu montres quelque chose avec la tête. Sometimes we'll nod at something, right? Or more specifically, le doigt, if you're pointing at something, d'accord? But we do that with our heads too. You're right. Parler. Avec quoi est-ce que tu parles? Avec quoi est-ce que tu parles? La bouche. Super. Avec quoi est-ce que tu penses? Ou bien, c'est pas avec ça que tu penses, quoi, mais c'est dedans, quoi. Dans quoi est-ce que tu penses? Oh là là. Avec la tête, c'est très bien. Avec quoi est-ce que tu sens? So sentir can mean three different things. It can mean to feel something, like feeling some velvet. It can mean to feel something like you feel sorry or you feel sad. Or it can mean to hear. So you have a couple of possibilities. Tu sens quelque chose? What I say? Not to hear, to smell. I'm sorry. I don't know why I said to hear. That's ridiculous. I think because I was just looking at the ear. Voilà, le nez. C'est très bien. I know what sentir means, okay. Okay, I know what it means. Le nez. Tu sens avec le nez. Regardez. See, why didn't you say something? I should have said I was quizzing you. I should have said I was just said that to make sure everybody was awake or something. Ah, oh well, I already buried the lead. Alors, c'est très bien. Regardez, avec quoi est-ce que tu regardes quelque chose? Regarder means to look. I know I've got that one right. Tu regardes avec. Or to watch. The eye. Très bien. En français? Ah, d'accord. You don't have to. You can just do OE. It's totally fine. But a lot of French people don't even use that little thing anymore. But you can if you want to. But you can always just type OE. And there's an AE once in a while. That doesn't happen. That almost never happens. But the OE, you can just type OE and you're fine. Très bien. Voilà. Avec l'œil. Hein. C'est très bien. Alors, je pense qu'on va le laisser pour l'instant. I am going to do another oral for y'all. I'm going to try to remember to do that at the end each time. Although, as I said, in future, I hope to have videos for us to... Normally, I try to find a song that kind of fits with what we're doing, and we'll do some kind of a video activity with some pop music or something. But I couldn't find anything for this stuff, so we'll try to do that in the future. So today I will do another audio reading for you if you want to look at exercise 3 on 399. And just like I said last week, and like I'm going to say all semester, excuse me, if you read through the questions, if you're doing an audio activity or a reading activity, here comes my yawning fit. If you read through the questions first, you will be able to give your head a little bit of a context so that it kind of knows what's going on before you jump in on the reading or on the audio activity. And especially for audio activities, if you go ahead and read the questions aloud to yourself, generally that will help you really be able to listen for what you need to listen for, since it's going to be using the same vocab as the audio passage uses. So let's look at the consigne, the direction. Sarah, son grand frère Guillaume et leur père parlent de qui va utiliser la salle de bain en premier ce matin. Écoutez la conversation et indiquez si les affirmations suivantes sont vraies ou fausses. D'accord? Sarah and her brother and her dad are talking about who gets to use the bathroom first. So if you need to pause the video and read through your cues, and I'm going to go ahead and read the audio, and then you can play the audio as many times as you want. And if you missed the reminders at the beginning, go back and play those. And basically it was just that I'll have everything caught up in the next day or so. I know you hear that every week, but I really am on the verge of being all caught up. And I will go delete all those old quizzes as well, so thanks to Joseph for reminding me that those are there. I didn't think that you guys could open them, but it's totally fine if you can, but it's going to mess up the grade book, so I'll go ahead and delete them. Alors, très bien. On y va avec le passage. I'm not on the right page. 399. Voila. I had the page ready and then I did something different. Okay. Alors, this time there are 3 people. It won't be as easy for me to do the 3 voices, but for the most part, all your questions have to do with Guillaume and Sarah. So do the best you can, and don't laugh at my voices. Alors, c'est encore une fois, c'est Sarah, Guillaume et le père qui sont en train de parler. J'ai quelque chose dans la gorge. Pardon. Sarah. Allez, Guillaume, j'ai besoin d'utiliser la salle de bain. Guillaume. 1 minute, je viens juste d'y entrer. Mais je suis en retard pour mes cours. Je n'ai pas entendu mon réveil. Sarah, laisse ton frère se raser, prendre une douche et se brosser les dents. Il est arrivé le premier. Je fais vite. Tiens, il n'y a plus de shampoing. Est-ce que tu peux m'apporter une nouvelle bouteille et une grande serviette de bain, s'il te plaît? Et tes pantoufles aussi? Un peu plus tard. Où est ta sœur? Sarah va prendre sa douche. Elle doit se brosser les dents, s'habiller et se coiffer en moins de 20 minutes. Elle a décidé de ne pas se maquiller et de ne pas se sécher les cheveux pour gagner du temps. Bon, on va te préparer quelque chose à manger dans le bus. C'est-à-dire, ils vont être en retard. C'est ça, n'est-ce pas? Voilà. Alors, again, don't be discouraged by how quickly I go on those. It's better for you guys to have something that's a little harder to reach for on those activities. So do the best you can. Play it as many times as you need to. Keep rereading the questions to yourself. And little by little, that is going to get better. If everything is always really slow for you, then you'll have a really hard time increasing your comprehension, your audio comprehension. And again, on the quizzes and tests, I do go a good bit slower, especially on the tests. So don't worry on that in that respect either. Alors voilà, bonne soirée. Merci tout le monde. Merci Joseph d'être venu. Et puis faites-moi des mails si vous avez des questions quelconques. Et surtout pour la composition, il ne doit pas y avoir trop de questions. Mais voilà. Bon ben, bonne soirée. Salut.
Recording stopped.